There's a such thing as too soon.
Yeah, I think it's too.
Yeah.
I'm happy for her.
I'm happy for them. I'm happy for everybody. I am sad because all weekend we've been getting news out of, and I want to pivot a little bit because the Sudan.
Right.
Oh man.
You know, I know it's heavy now, but I want to make sure we talk about it because a lot of our viewers have been asking about it. Black Twitter's been buzzing about it. You see a lot of the blue avatars or blue profile pics now and stuff like that because people are speaking out about what's been happening in Sudan. For the last few months, just to give an update for people who don't know in the audience, there's been an uprising in Sudan. On April 11th, there was a resistance movement that overturned the president, Omar al-Bashir, who'd been there for 30 years. The reason why the initial protest happened was just because the price of bread had tripled.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that had been happening since December. And then in April, they finally overturned the government. And it was like, okay, now there's a chance for freedom. There's a chance for a new possibility with the government. And what they said is we're going to get rid of Bashir, and then we're going to put in what's called a TMC. It's basically a military council that will be temporary.
Right.
So that we can have free elections. And the idea is that after maybe 2 or 3 years, initially they wanted 4 years, that that they can have the structures in place to have a free election and people can take over their own government. Unfortunately, the council's like, nope, we're going to do this for a couple of months, and then we're going to start elections right away. The reason they want elections right away is because the same government people are there, the same people who are running the country for 30 years are still around, and the idea is they can have a fake election and then bring the same people back in charge again, and that's what often happens in these situations. So the people are saying, no, we want civilian control, we want to run our own government, we want to be free. We haven't been free ever, really.
Right.
And so that's what's going on. You saw protests. A lot of my friends who are journalists were there. A lot of activists were there. A lot of students were there. A lot of professional organizations were there protesting without guns, without any weapons. And they were being killed by the regime. They were being shot by the regime. Even before he was ousted, there was a lot of, you saw that. You saw violence with guns, knives. You also saw rape, which is something that's been happening in the last few months against the protesters. So when all this is happening, the world should be watching. But unfortunately, for so long, the world wasn't watching. And that's what just has me very frustrated right now, because when someone gets hurt in France, or if nobody gets hurt in France and it's just a bombing, we hear about it.
Right.
When there are people in Europe who die, we hear about it. When a white woman goes missing in Mexico,
We hear
or Aruba,
about it.
or Westchester,
Woo.
we hear about it.
Westchester.
But whole villages of Nigerian girls go missing.
Yeah.
And we had to fight to bring back our girls. This happens in Sudan. And it seems to me that the consistent piece is that everybody's black. And in this case, they're black, they're Muslim, they're African. And suddenly we just don't care as much. I mean, are y'all getting that sense?
Absolutely. And I think that's so important, and the reason why so many, I think, influencers and a lot of people have been changing their Instagram Abby's and Twitter Abby's is so people are aware. At least if you're like, why did someone change their Abby Blue? You could Google it and it would say, you know, there's a revolution happening in the Sudan, and then you do more research and then you care. But I think the great thing about people using their platforms is that even if the news doesn't cover it, we can create change by starting the conversation, which is what Rihanna did. Rihanna posted on her stories, guys, all of this is happening in the Sudan right now. We need to say more, like last week. And I think that was honestly the tipping point. As much as it is annoying that a celebrity had to do it, could be, I love that it was Rihanna, but she said that and so many people cared. So it's really dope to see us changing the narrative.
Yeah, it's super sad, like, because I think we think that the world, even though the world is small, sometimes we think of it as big. But then when you see thousands upon thousands of people being raped and murdered that look like you, it takes a direct effect. And clearly, this is not just something that is out of the blue. This is a clear-cut genocide of a group of people who look like us. So I have no point but to care. I gotta care, because it could be any of us at any point in time.
I wonder all the time, what is it, or what did we do
I think about that all the time.
to make the world turn a blind eye to black people?
Yo.
Not just this nation, the world.
The world.
The world turn a blind eye to black people. And the fact that we are not seen as human bothers me. And that's what it makes my blood boil.
Yeah.
You know, to have this conversation, and you see what they've done for Paris. You know what I'm saying? They were...
Oh. And you just
got
left.
Back.
Yeah.
I just got back, and they were going left and right, running around everywhere, you know, trying to get this money together. Did they raise $1 billion?
Yeah, I think they did.
That's insane.
$1 billion? And no one wants to help black or brown people at any cost.
And that bugs me out. By the way, Brianna Wild, Thomasina Spellman, Talaya Greenfield, all tuning in on Facebook. Thank y'all for watching. We got a lot of comments coming in. Keep your comments coming in, not just about colorism, but also about what's going on in Sudan. and everything else. Yeah, it's
It's a humanity thing.
Yeah.
It
This is like people. We are people.
Yeah.
absolutely.
So it bothers me every time.
Yeah.
And I think there's this idea sometimes that if they're Arab or Muslim, all they do is fight anyway. If they're African, they're disposable because that's all they do is fight, and they're always corrupt. So who cares? And so we create these narratives that black and brown people don't matter and that they're disposable because they're not, like you said, because they're not human.
Yeah.
So then people aren't as invested. But if a white person loses their innocence, if a shooting happens in a school, which is a tragedy, we're outraged because we're like, oh my God, white kids are losing their innocence. If a European country gets bombed, oh my God, these people are losing their civilization.
Right.
But if you see
Yeah.
African people as uncivilized,
It's normal.
it's
normal.
easy.
Well,